Hello, thanks for joining me. This is Art with Nona. My name is Anne, and today I'm going to give you my review of the Art Philosophy Prima Marketing Woodland curated palette. There are 12 half pans in the palette. I've got a swatch video up. I think it's in one of my shorts. Not entirely sure, but it is on the channel. And I just love these paints so much. This particular palette is by far my favorite. I decided I would just go in with my Princeton Heritage No. 6 round. And on this 100% cotton B watercolor paper, I just thought I'd do some mushrooms. Because if you're working with a woodland palette, what better fits with a woodland theme than some mushrooms growing on the forest floor? And you can see I'm just adding some shadows and leaving some white space for highlights, putting a little bit of ground in there. At this point in the painting, I wasn't even sure what I was going to do. So I decided, well, I'll try a different kind of mushrooms. And these, I don't know what these mushrooms are called. I don't know what either mushroom is called. They're just familiar to me. These little short guys are the kind that I often see in Chinese food. I don't know what they are. If you do, please tell me. I love mushrooms, and these are no exception. My favorite kind of mushroom is the big portobello mushroom. What's your favorite? Let me know in the comments. And how do you cook them? I just put them in so many different foods. In fact, I just made a stir fry last night, and I put some of the white mushrooms in there. I don't know what they're called. Maybe they're just called white mushrooms. Like the one on the left. Anyway, here we are adding some ground to that section of mushrooms there. And now I think I'm going to go in with a little bit of moss. I think that is the color there that they call it deep moss. It's like a hooker's green. And going in with some more of the browns and just gray, trying to get a good forest floor. And I think graystone is the name of that color. I'm not entirely sure. I don't have it in front of me. Now I've switched to the No. 2 Princeton Heritage, and I'm putting the little veins that you see underneath the mushroom, just to give that one a little bit of a curvy shape to it. Intensifying the shadow over there and on the left side in general. Going back to that beige, maybe it's called sandstone. They're great colors. They really are. A lot of these curated palettes act like they are traditional watercolors with some white pigment mixed in. So basically they're kind of a gouache, but yet they're still pretty sheer. So I really do like them. Just intensifying the shadows here on these little short mushrooms. Trying to lift their little caps off of their stems. And I said, you know what this needs? 2 more mushrooms. So same sort of technique over here, putting this larger mushroom behind with that same light tan color. This color reminds me a bit of buff titanium. It's a little bit more yellow than that, but it is a really good color. Which, interestingly enough, makes a great mixing color. You can make a really pretty robin's egg blue by mixing, oh my gosh, I think it's a Prussian blue with this buff titanium shade. And you just get the proportions just right, and it really makes a nice robin's egg blue. And true confessions, I may not be remembering that correctly. It might have been the French ultramarine that I mixed to get that robin's egg shade. I don't remember. I was just playing around one day. But that does lead me to discuss the mixing on these palettes. The curated palettes are plus minus in that way. It depends on what you're looking for. They're not, even though there are 12 half pans in there, they do cost around $30 when I purchased them. You might find a better price. But when I bought them, they were around $30. So it's kind of expensive for what you get. The paints in the pans weirdly swell after they're wet. I never had that happen with any of my other paints. They just go back to normal after you use them. These, the next time I opened them, they were larger. I don't live in a humid environment, so I don't really know why that happened. it hasn't affected the function of the paint at all. This shade, I believe, is called Night. I love this blue. It's just one of my favorite shades of blue. It's just so beautiful. At any rate, I was talking about mixing colors. Typically, when I make a black or a gray, I will take indigo and burnt sienna and try and mix those together to make a really nice, versatile black and gray. This palette, I had a hard time finding the right mixture because every gray that I made, every dark gray, I couldn't get it dark enough, for one thing. And the other issue I was having was that it kind of leaned green a little bit. It just wasn't coming out a good neutral gray like I'm used to with the indigo and the burnt sienna. So, these aren't quite those pigments. So, of course, you're going to have to make do and maybe introduce some other pigments into your palette. I believe in that center section you could probably easily fit other half pans if you put them in sideways, perpendicular to the ones that are in there, and just put a little bit of poster tack or double-sided tape underneath it, and then you could, or even a magnet, and then you could fit probably 4 or 5 more down that center line. I didn't measure it, but I know that you could fit more palettes in here, the half pans. Okay, I've switched over for this background, I did have to go to a bigger brush. I believe this is a number 10, it might be a number 12, Princeton Neptune. And I love these brushes, they're my favorite. They're a faux squirrel, and the natural wood feel in my hand is very wonderful to work with. I prefer it to the shellacked brush, like the Heritage. This is just such a wonderful feel. I like that feeling of working with a natural wood. Meaning, not heavily varnished. Now I'm going in and dropping in some clear water because this blue makes such a cool effect when it's got intentional cauliflower blooms on it. I love how the pigment spreads around. And I just kind of wanted it to look like a little interesting night sky. And now I'm blotting up the water where it got a little out of control, which is okay. There's always a fix. I'm just going in with a dry paper towel and kind of cleaning off the mushrooms. And drying it with a heat tool so that I can go in and make some finishing touches here. Back to my number 6 round. And then I remembered I have a favorite color in this set. It is that foxberry. It's such a beautiful red, and I thought, oh my gosh, if I layer that thinly, just so sheer over the mushrooms, that's going to give them so much life, and I love the way it turned out. So I'm very happy I went in and did this additional wash of a very sheer layer of the foxberry. And then I thought, well, now I've got to add it into the ground. So I did. And that's some of the redwood, which is a bit like Indian red. And I think I added some gray in there at some point, going in with some more browns, just trying to get the ground to look a little more forest floor-ish. And now I'm going to clean up that mushroom where the blue encroached just a little bit. Doing a little bit of lifting. Yeah, this paper works well. The paints lift well. I have no complaints with this palette whatsoever. I really love it. And in fact, I'm so glad I got it out again because I want to use it more. I haven't done a light fast test on it, so I can't speak to that. You can certainly do your own light fast test. Just paint some of the paints in a swatch and then put it up in a window. And cover half of your swatch with paper. And then you can make a comparison when you take it down. I like to leave it up for about a month. Okay, now it's one of my favorite parts, taking off that tape for that crisp white border. I'm using a heat tool to help the tape loosen its adhesive and pulling the tape off at an angle, as you can see. And there you have it. That is the Prima Marketing Art Philosophy Woodland Curated Palette. And I hope if you are the lucky owner of one of these, you find yourself painting some mushrooms. I'm going to put a little picture at the end of this video. Look who came to visit me while I was adding the sound recording to this.